Welcome back. Tonight we are going to fall asleep inside a schedule. If you are here to rest, perfect. I will keep the volume steady. If you wake up later, I will probably still be describing a line in a ledger that refuses to be exciting. It is the early 1920s. The air smells like dust that tried to be tidy and gave up. We stand in the open mouth of a warehouse that sits a quiet walk from the water. Close enough for gulls to argue like neighbours, far enough for the city to pretend not to notice. Inside, the light is the colour of weak tea. It comes through old cloth that has known many afternoons. There are crates in careful rows. Each row looks like a polite neighbourhood. Not too close, not too far. Chalk marks sit on the boards. They mean something to someone and nothing to us. That is fine. Tonight we want calm, not clarity. A warehouseman arrives with a ring of keys. He is an ordinary man with a very serious relationship to doors. He slides a heavy panel along a track. The metal complains, then remembers its manners and behaves. The floor is plank and memory. The air is cool on purpose. The paper on the desk is squared to the edges as if corners could keep secrets from rolling away. This isn't a story about chases. This isn't a story about heroics. This is a story about trucks that leave on tie. It is a story about shoes that do not echo. It is a story about receipts that fold into envelopes and sleep there for one night and no more. On the desk there is a clipboard. The pencil on its string is a small medal for quiet work. Tonight we follow that pencil. We follow the way it pauses on a date. We follow the way it writes a number and then underlines the number with a little sigh. A clock near the door says almost 2 a.m. The second hand moves like a cat that has decided to be responsible. Time feels gentle here. The building is old but not tired. It likes work that arrives with a plan. Outside, the street keeps a low voice. A single truck idles somewhere to the left. The engine has a steady breath. Not fast, not loud, just steady. The sound finds the loading bay and curls up like a warm dog. We are not here to be technical. We are here to rest. So we will say simple things and let them be enough. A crate meets a dolly meets a ramp meets a truck bed that smells like canvas and rain. Someone nods, someone counts, someone writes a number that will later become a story in safe handwriting. The crates are never called by their true name. They are glassware, they are syrup, they are flavouring extract, they are anything that makes a stack of paper feel calm. The labels travel in pairs. One label can answer questions, the other label is there to be asked. Both labels are polite. In the corner, a broom leans against a wall, as if it knows everything and plans to say nothing. A stack of folded blankets waits near the ramp. The blankets come from a hotel that believes in laundry more than it believes in guests. The blankets know how to keep glass from having opinions. The warehouseman checks the chalk lines on the floor. He likes the pattern. It says we have done this before and will do it again. He points with his chin. 2 men lift a crate together and move the slow way that keeps fingers safe and nights simple. There is a ledger that matters. Is it the ledger on the desk? It lives in a drawer beneath a box of rubber stamps. The stamps say legal things in cheerful letters. The ledger is quieter than the stamps. It has its own way of telling the truth. It uses small numbers and even smaller comments in the margins. The comments are calm. They say things like, rain expected after midnight. They say things like, use the longer street when the bakery is busy. They say things like, do not stop at the lamp that flickers. The comments are friendly to sleep. They turn worry into chores. At the far end of the room, a rolling door opens a hand width. Night air crosses the threshold and forgets to leave. The gulls out on the water are not interested in our work. That is the best kind of help. A man with a cap and a careful face steps in and tips the cap. He doesn't give a name. He gives a T. He says 2:20. The warehouseman nods. He writes it down as if the numbers are shy and need a place to sit. We walk past stacks of wooden cases. The wood is rough on the outside and soft on the inside where straw has taught it patience. Now and then a bottleneck hums a little when the building sighs. The hum is friendly. Is it a warning? It is a reminder that glass likes to sing when it is comfortable. At the loading bay, a ramp settles into its position. The ramp believes in angles. It does not believe in drama. 2 slow steps and a lift. The crate finds the truck bed. The blanket folds over it, the way a quiet mother covers a sleeping child. If you are drifting, that is perfect. When you return, you may find us counting the short nails in the ramp. We count not because we need to. We count because counting is a soft kind of order. 10 nails, then a pause, then another 10. The rhythm is a pocket metronome that does not need to be right to be useful. The driver sits in the cab and writes 3 lines in a tiny book. The book has a broken corner. The lines are simple. Load B, truck 2, leave at 2:20. Then he closes the book and places it under the seat where it likes to live. He checks the mirrors, he checks the fuel, he checks a map that has been marked by a pencil that refuses to sharpen to a point. The marks are gentle curves and ordinary turns. Nothing is bold. Bold gets noticed. Tonight we would rather be mistaken for furniture. A patrol car glides by once and keeps going. The truck does not look at it. The truck looks at the road the way a reader looks at a page they know by heart. The driver adjusts a cuff. That is all. Inside, the clerk works through a stack of forms. The dates are true, the weights are almost true. Almost is the correct size for a night like this. Too much truth can sparkle. Sparkle is his welcome here. He stamps one page with a date that barely touches the ink pad. The page, is it dramatic? It is satisfied. Paper likes it when a stamp is sure of itself. The warehouse clock gives a small sound at the quarter hour. The sound is modest and disciplined. Everyone likes that sound. It is proof that Tive is doing its job while we do ours. Another truck will come later, not as a pair. Pairs are noticed. The second truck arrives after a small gap. 5 minutes is a good gap. 5 minutes is a coat you can wear in any weather. The warehouseman crosses to the far wall and pulls a chain to lower the opposite door. The chain whispers over the wheel. The door settles with a private thud. The building relaxes by a degree that only the floorboards can feel. A therma sits on the desk near the ledger drawer. It is dented where a doorway once argued with it. The lid unscrews with a patient sound. The coffee inside has accepted its purpose in life. It warms the throat and suggests confidence, but does not insist on it. We pause here and listen. There is the engine. There is the clock. There is the distant tap of a shoe on a stair. The stair creaks in a language that says I have held many nights, and will hold this one too. A soft rain begins. The drops are slow and respectful. The street outside becomes a narrow river for careful tires. The ramp glistens. A man places a rag on the slick spot without comment. It stays there like a small flag of practicality. The file that matters goes to the back of the drawer. The file that answers questions goes to the front. Both are neat. Both are clean. Both would survive a visit from someone who prefers clipboards to conversation. A note is added to the margin of the private book. It says, bakery light out at 2:10. It says, fruit stand delivery early on Thursdays. It says, do not tap the horn at the alley with the laundry. The note is it for drama. The note is for tomorrow. The truck settles under its load. A strap is tightened. A knot is tied with a motion that has been repeated so many times it no longer uses thought. The knot has a name, but we do not need it. It knows what to do. The warehouseman walks the rows one more time. He touches the corner of a crate with the back of his hand. The touch says, "Stay put." The crate agrees. The chalk marks look back at him like children who have been given clear instructions. He returns to the desk and draws a small square in the ledger next to the time. The square is his way of telling himself that the shape of the night is correct. He closes the book. The pages rest with a quiet breath. The driver looks at the clock. It is time, not on the hour, on the shrug between moments when no one expects anything to begin. He turns the key. The engine leans forward in spirit and in sound. The truck eases away from the bay and into the street that believes in minding its own business. The ramp is pulled back. The blankets are folded. The door slides shut. The warehouse keeps a few lights on for the sake of habit. The building prefers company, even if the company is only numbers that intend to be checked in the morning. If you have drifted, that is perfect. If you are still with me, we will stand a moment longer in the doorway and watch the taillights vanish. They are small red thoughts that become smaller and then none. The street smells like rain and wood. The ledger smells like pencil and a plan that has been carried out without incident. The night folds itself back into place. We leave the warehouse the way we found it, calm, square, ready for another schedule. The clock says almost 2:20. The pencil on the string hangs at rest. The keys rest on the desk like a tidy promise. We start with a piece of paper that believed it could change evenings. Before trucks and ledgers and rain on canvas, there were meetings in bright rooms and long speeches in quiet halls. People signed their names. Newspapers printed the names in tidy columns. A nation drew a line through a habit and called everything on one side a problem and everything on the other side a policy. The new rule was simple in ink and complicated in life. You may not make it, you may not move it, you may not sell it, you may not bring it across a counter with a smile. The words felt fur on the page. Out in the world they met roads and clocks and people with plans. We will not argue the rule. That is for daytime. We are here to notice what the rule did to schedules. It made them specific. It made them polite. It made them careful in the way that sleep lifes. Factories that had made one thing changed their signs and said they made another thing. Breweries began to whisper about cereal drinks. Wineries spoke of grape juice and vinegar. A warehouse that had stored barrels now stored barrels that needed new names. The barrels did not mind. They were used to being useful. A book of definitions arrived on many desks. It tried to decide what was a drink and what was not a drink. It set a number for strength. It offered exceptions that sounded like errands. Medicine, religion, research, industrial uses. Each exception came with stamps and permits and small rules that made themselves at home in file drawers. Clerks learned new words and new habits. They lined up bottles on paper. They counted boxes that would soon be called something else. They practiced a tone of voice that sounded helpful without becoming curious. They learned that the safest answer in a long night is, "Let me check the list." The city listened and adjusted. Bars became soda fountains. Then sometimes the soda fountains became something that rhymed with soda fountains but wore a different hat after dark. A restaurant taught its chairs how to look innocent. A hotel taught its hallways how to forget. Agents were hired to make the rule real. Some were devoted, some were overworked, some believed that a little envelope could save them from trouble at home. They had their own schedules. They kept watch lists and map pins and calendars that breathed in and out with payday. The rule made water busy. Rivers and lakes gained new attention. A quiet inlet that once smelled only of reeds learned the smell of gasoline at 2 in the morning. The sea did not change its mind. It went on being salt and rhythm. It watched people try to outplan one another and made no comment. We stay on land for now. The rule turned ordinary trucks into characters. They were not daring. They were punctual. They were proud of their tires and their lights that did not flicker. They liked streets that never asked questions. Every company that touched a crate learned to love paper. Permits, receipts, inventories, credits, returns. A man with a rubber stamp became a minor royal. The stamp said dates and approvals in a square voice. Each impression felt like a small door clicking shut. If you looked at an office in those years, you would see 2 ledgers on the same desk. One ledger sat on top. It was for visitors. It had clean columns that told a simple story about syrup and glassware and flavouring extract. The other ledger lived in a drawer. It spoke in a smaller voice. It kept track of what people actually did on quiet streets. The rule reached into kitchens. Bottles moved behind flour bins and under sinks. Recipes learned to whisper. If anyone asked, it was cough syrup for a cousin. If anyone else asked, it was cooking wine that never met a stove. Pharmacies became very good at finding their prescription pads. Doctors found their pens. Somewhere, a typewriter filled many careful forms that all agreed a little relief was necessary, and very timely. Churches learned a new vocabulary too: wine for ritual, lists of names, locks on cabinets, signatures in neat rows. A small bottle with a very serious label might take a quiet walk across town on a weeknight and then come back again in daylight. Factories that made alcohol for industry began to grow gates and guards and new ways to say no. The liquid was denatured. It was made unfriendly to the throat. Then a separate line of work tried to make it friendly again. We will not learn how. We will only note that someone always did, and someone always kept track. The rule did not fall on every place with the same weight. Some towns were dry already and felt confirmed. Some cities sighed and whispered and carried on. Borders that had once been lines on maps became long conversations with weather and distance. Rail yards studied their schedules and their sidings. A freight car is a very patient creature. It can be honest for a month and then look the other way for an hour without changing its expression. Switchmen learned to look past a certain boxcar if it slept under a particular lamp. Ferries and small boats learned the art of being boring. A captain practiced a face that said, "I am thinking about oats for the mule," and nothing else. Harbour clocks clicked along. A foghorn spoke in full sentences to no one in particular. In offices downtown, people who liked order found new toys. There were maps with tiny coloured pins. A red pin might mean trouble. A blue pin might mean routine. A yellow pin might mean check this next Tuesday. The pins moved slowly and then stayed still for weeks. Courtrooms arranged their calendars like dinner seating. A row for simple matters, a row for technical questions, a row for the cases that would end in fines that looked large in newspapers and small to the people who paid them. Seizures happened, warehouses were locked, trucks were taken and then auctioned. A truck could have a whole life. Work, trouble, a coat of paint, then a new owner and the same roads. The truck did not care. It liked to be useful. Dulfu Pilru the Gory written our fair must speak into our crueler, and it now weird something to leven. This beautiful word you've seen as had a landscape, and lead I am with the cedry stipper form, delight fit teaking in our blooming foes torch. The peaty in the wind shall just take a right up and thinking. People said they won't accompany themselves as if it's from some of them, or the train places. All of this made schedules gentle and detailed. Gentle because haste felt noisy. Detailed because every handoff needed a note. A day became a string of small tasks that looked harmless if you read them one by one. A typical day for a quiet office might look like this. Open at 9 with a scent of starch and pencil shavings. Ledger review for 30 minutes. Walk to the pier just before 10. Not on the hour, never on the hour. Check on crates that are called glass but feel like promise. Walk back a slightly longer way. Lunch at a place that knows when to forget. Afternoon calls with people who prefer first names. Close at 5 if the street feels friendly. Stay until 6 if it does os. The rule pushed people toward the art of plausible fronts. A beverage company that sold soft drinks also sold heavy crates that sometimes rattled the wrong way. An ice delivery business knew every alley and didn't need to hurry. A bakery had sacks that could cover anything. A garage kept ledgers that could absorb numbers like a beach absorbs tide lines. There were meetings in back rooms where chairs whispered over tile. People practiced stories that made sense even to tired policemen. They chose details that were true. This keeps the story awake, someone would say. Then they went home early because a good night requires sleep too. Season after season, the rule wrote its own weather report into every plan. Summer meant longer light and more voices in the street. Winter gave darkness but also ice and tires that changed their minds. Spring was sloppy, autumn was polite and early to bed. Holidays mattered. A city changes its mind on a holiday. Crowds gather where they usually do not. Police rosters shift. Radios chat more or less. A smart schedule disappears into a parade or chooses the opposite direction and lets the town look the other way. Time itself presented choices. Some places moved their clocks forward and backward at different dates. This was a gift wrapped as a puzzle. A delivery might be planned for an hour that didn't exist, or for 2 hours that shared the same name. People who loved ledgers took notes and smiled into their collars. Sound played a part. Church bells, factory whistles, theatre let out, the last streetcar of the night. Each sound marked a change of pace for a neighborhood. Schedules learned these songs and danced slowly to them. Language became soft and coded without being fancy. A phone call might say, "We will bring the chairs after the rain." The person on the other end would say, "The back door sticks after dark." No names, no numbers, just harmless words that had jobs. Out in the country, the rule had a different flavor. Long roads, quiet barns, a river with a lazy bend, a deputy who liked fishing more than forms. The calendar was ruled by planting and harvest. Trucks learned the rhythm of those months and tiptoed around it. Back in the city, the rule created new kinds of neighbors. Some storefronts were bright, some were dim. Some were bright until 11 and then dim for an hour and then bright again. Upstairs windows glowed in a way that meant card games and coffee. Everyone learned the look of a night that meant wait 5 minutes before you walk past. Newspapers played both sides of the lullaby. One page told stories of raids and daring officers and heavy headlines. Another page carried small ads for soft drinks and social clubs and friendly lodgings with good curtains. The 2 pages met at the fold and got along fine. Public opinion moved like weather. Some days it blew hard and said enough. Other days it rested and said, "Let us not make a fuss." Schedules watched the weather like farmers. They worked with what came and never took it personally. The rule had enemies and friends and people in between. It also had accountants. The accountants did not shout. They wrote numbers with care. The numbers said trucks cost money, drivers cost money, blankets and twine and tarps cost money, mistakes cost the most. The best savings came from leaving on time and stopping in places where no one was interested. The same rule that tried to end a habit created a market for order. The order looked like boredom. It looked like lists of errands and piles of envelopes. It looked like a set of keys that moved from one hook to another at the same moment each night. There were attempts to fix the rule by writing new words. Committees met. Hearings happened. A man would lean into a microphone and say he had figures. Another man would say he had stories. The figures and the stories didn't cancel each other. They sat side by side and waited for lunch. Through all of this, a simple fact became useful. People notice what changes speed. People do not notice what keeps a steady pace. A truck that glides. A clerk who always arrives at the same minute. A door that opens and closes with the same small sound. That is invisibility as a craft. So the amendment that began as a moral sentence turned into a calendar exercise. It created new jobs for clocks and pencils and shoes with quiet souls. It taught buildings to hold their breath for a moment and then relax. It turned 100 small skills into a quiet economy of patience. In this story, the rule is it a villain and not a hero. It is a metronome. It ticks. People set their lives to it. Some set their lives against it. Everyone learned to count to the same beat and then find the spaces between the clicks. Now we return to our warehouse and our clipboard. The pencil makes a small note. It says leave at 2:20, not on the hour, on the shrug between other sounds. The rule will be there whether we move fast or slow. We choose slow. Slow is the safest voice in a busy world. If you are drifting, that is perfect. When we come back together, we will follow the supply to the places near the water, where gulls attend their meetings and cranes pretend to be bored. Between now and then, the clock will do our work for us. It will turn minutes into a soft path, one step at a dive. We will begin at the edge of the water. The air is cool and carries the smell of salt and rope and old wood. Gulls circle as if they are inspectors who prefer to work from a distance. The pier is awake but not lively. It prefers a steady pace and a quiet voice. Supply is a chain that does not want to look like a chain. It wants to look like errands. It wants to look like a man with a cap, who walks with purpose but never with hurry. Tonight, we will follow the errands. The liquid comes from many places. Some places are far away across water and weather. Some places are near and private and smell faintly of corn and patience. Some places are simply rooms where copper learned to be useful. We will not measure anything. We will not count ingredients. We only note that glass meets cork, and cork meets straw, and straw meets crate, and crates learn to travel the way cats learn to nap. At the harbour, a small boat rubs against the fender posts and makes a sound like a long sigh. The sound is it a warning? It is a reminder that wood remembers. The boat arrived an hour ago while the town was thinking about other things. Its cargo has a story that prefers to be simple. The story says samples of syrup and delicate glassware for demonstration. The story fits on a single page. The page lives in a pocket that is clean and calm. 3 men and a quiet winch begin to move crates. The winch complains softly because it hates to wake up. The rope tightens with the confidence of a habit. A crate rises and swings, and then settles on a dolly that takes its job seriously. The dolly rolls along boards that have been walked smooth by a century of sensible shoes. In a corner of the pier office, a clerk sits at a high desk. The desk is tall so that the clerk can look busy without standing up. The clerk has a stack of forms that are friendly to sleep. Each form has lines for item and weight and destination. The clerk writes with a rounded hand that never pokes through the page. A stamp lives in a dish of ink that is never too wet. The stamp says today and a number. The stamp touches paper with just enough force to leave a mark and not enough to leave a memory. The clerk puts the form in a folder that will go into a drawer that never argues. A man from the boat steps in and signs a name that looks like a hill seen from far away. The name isn't the name his mother used. It is the name that the pier prefers. The pier does not care what the name is. The pier cares only that the lines are filled and that the signatures are not dramatic. We walk outside, and the tide has moved a little. There is a line on the posts that says the water is patient. Patience is the true currency of supply. Without patience there are only messes. With patience there is a schedule that looks like a lullaby. The truck waits with its lights off. The canvas cover is tied with loops that have been tied so many times they will hold even if a thought wanders. The truck smells like rope and oil and yesterday's rain. The driver drinks from a thermos that has made peace with dents. He nods to the foreman. The nod is the permission that matters. A crate labelled flavouring extract reaches the truck bed. The letters are stern and friendly at the same time. The crate does not rattle. That is because someone taught it how to be carried. The driver places a blanket under it. The blanket once belonged to a hotel that liked routine. The blanket still likes routine. Where did the crate begin? Perhaps in a warehouse near a river mouth where barges sit like old horses. Perhaps in a cellar where a cousin learned to mind a kettle and a calendar. Perhaps in a town where the main street sleeps after 10 and the deputy likes to fish. The precise answer is it required for sleep. It is enough to know that many roads lead to the pier, and most of them prefer not to be named. If anyone asks what the crates contain, the answer is molasses. It is always molasses. Molasses explains weight. Molasses explains caution. Molasses explains the way a stain spreads on a board and then stops when it has made its point. At the far end of the pier a man pretends to fish. He has no bait and doesn't need any. His job is to look bored. He is a master of boredom. He glances too when a whistle sounds from the ferry beyond the breakwater. The whistle means pass to finish this pallet, and then breathe. Two boys push the dolly with a rhythm they learned from the planks. Their feet know exactly how much pressure to give and when to lean. They do not speak. Talking uses air that is needed for balance. The supply that travels by water comes in patterns that the pier can hum. A small boat arrives on the quarter hour that nobody notices. A larger ship arrives once a week and pretends to be all about barrels of oil for machines. The men on the larger ship are polite and tired. They have seen many harbours and many faces that all want the same thing, which is to get through a night without stories. Sometimes the supply is born on land. It lives in barns that smell like hay and clean metal. It lives in sheds that listen to rain. It lives in basements that never bother the landlord. Land supply prefers a truck that is too new. It prefers a truck that knows the sound of a gravel road and the feel of a wooden bridge that would like to retire. The people who care for land supply are not in a hurry. They look at clouds. They know the difference between a brisk wind and an argument. They check a calendar that has fingerprints in the corners. They prefer to move when the town is busy with something else, like a fair or a game or a wedding. Now and then a train helps without advertising the fact. A boxcar sits in a siding and thinks about nothing. Someone opens the door just enough to let a crate take a nap inside. Later a man with a lantern writes a number in chalk. The number will mean something only to the next man with a lantern. Supply also travels in the safest disguise of all. It travels as ordinary errands. A delivery of bottles to a shop that sells seltzer with pride. A stack of corks going to a factory that claims to love ginger ale. A shipment of sugar that never says where it will end up. All of these errands have invoices that look like church bulletins. Calm, respectful, busy with dates. We pause to notice the tools that supply prefers. A good rope that has never told a secret. A hand truck with one wheel that squeaks in a comforting way. A canvas sheet that can read the weather and starts to move before the wind does. A pencil that writes in a hand that looks like patience on paper. A note about secrecy, offered gently. The people who move supply do not admire mystery. They admire routine. They do not whisper passwords. They whisper times. They do not brag about work. They brag, if they brag at all, about never missing a turn and never waking a sleeping dog. At the end of the pier, a small office keeps a second set of files. This is it dramatic. Many offices keep a second set of files. The second set is knit to hide the truth. It is to protect sleep. If someone knocks during business hours, they will see the papers they expect to see. If someone knocks after midnight, they will meet the night watch who speaks only about weather. We walk past a stack of barrels that say vinegar. The smell is of vinegar. The smell is hope wrapped in practical clothing. A cat sleeps on the highest barrel and proves with its snore that nothing urgent is happening. The driver checks the tires with a small tool and a smaller frown. Tires are the weak link in any chain that hopes to stay quiet. A soft tire makes a loud plan. A proper tire makes no plan at all. It simply does its job and then cools in the morning shade. The supply that comes by sea has structure. It has staging points. An island that once held only sheep now holds a shed and a lamp and a man who reads novels. A cove that once welcomed only storms now welcomes small boats that pretend to be out for a friendly drift. These places are not secret. They are simply unimportant to people who like noise. There are signals of a sort, not codes, not songs, only habits. A lantern that swings twice and then stills. A coat hung on the same nail every time. A newspaper folded to the weather page and left on a bench. The pier speaks to its friends in the language of normal behaviour. Inland, supply finds other routes. A canal with weeds and the memory of greatness. A towpath that now hosts quiet bicycles and one mule that still has opinions. A lock tender who believes that midnight is a reasonable time for water to move. These paths are slow and safe. Slow is a friend of sleep. Sometimes the supply walks, not in bottles and crates, in people. A traveller brings a small case. The case holds 6 things that clink. The traveller stays at a boarding house with strict rules and generous tea. The landlady understands that a well-run home is a ship. Ships require cargo now and then. Paper follows supply like a shadow. Some paper is official and clean. Some paper is private and smudged. The private kind lives in pockets and under hats, and in the spine of a book that no one ever finishes. It is a ledger of risk. It is a map of promises. A promise might say 2 crates to Orchard Street before dawn. A promise might say, leave the empties behind the bakery on Friday. A promise might say, do not park under the lamp that clicks. It always says, be ordinary. Be the most ordinary you have ever been. We stand now at the back of the truck while the last crate settles. The foreman places his hand on the top of the stack as if he is blessing it. He is irreligious in the formal way. He is religious in the way that believes in straps and knots and lists that do not need adjectives. He writes a line in a small book, Load B, 5 cases, 2 to Orchard, 3 to the garage that used to be a stable. Leave at 2:20. He closes the book like a polite door. The supply that feeds the city also feeds the rumour mill. People talk. They are mostly wrong. They imagine adventures where there are only errands. They imagine gunfire where there are only lists. The men who move the crates smile into their collars and keep working. There are risks. Weather is a risk. A plank that cracks is a risk. A policeman who decides to practice questions is a risk. The answer to risk is courage. The answer is padding. Extra time, extra rope, extra patience. We look up the street from the pier and see the city as a patient machine. It has belt drives and pulleys and 1,000 small bearings that prefer grease to applause. Supply moves into this machine the way a quiet cog slides into place. It does its clatter. It does not strain. it simply turns. Small shops play their part. A hardware store sells twine and nails and advice that sounds like folklore. A printing shop sells labels that say perfectly innocent things in a calm font. A tailor fixes a pocket so to hold a notebook without showing a lump. The city itself is a toolkit, and the supply chain is a set of gentle hands that know where each tool lives. Night deepens. The ferry horn speaks once and then rests. The crane tucks its hook. The boat that pretended to be about syrup eases away with the tide. The wake spreads and then softens and then disappears. Disappearance is the goal. A final note on origin. People like to ask where it came from. They want a place, a face, a story with a flag. But supply during these years is a blend. It is a choir of small voices, a little from the island, a little from the farm, a little from the shop with the polite blinds. The blend is what makes it invisible. One voice is a solo. Many voices make a crowd that looks like a city being a city. A cat stretches and walks away from the vinegar barrels. The clerk in the office stacks the last forms and taps them into a square. The driver nods once to the foreman. The foreman nods once to the tide. Nods are the punctuation marks of quiet work. We climb into the cab and shut the door with care. The door has its own weather. If you slam it, it storms. If you ease it, it clears. The engine turns over and settles into a sound like a heart that is listening. The first turn will not be the nearest turn. The first street will not be the obvious street. The route is a braid that was tied long ago and retied last week, and retied again just now, in the mind of the driver. He knows where the bakery will stack its bread. He knows when the night watch will look at the clock and dream of coffee. The truck rolls. The pier grows small. Behind us the tide keeps its own books. Ahead of us the city keeps schedules like a librarian keeps books, with quiet pride and a disapproving look for noise. We are one line in that catalogue. We will leave on pie. We will arrive without comment. We will become part of a stack that looks like a wall and sounds like sleep. If you are drifting, that is perfect. When you return, we will be under a lamp that flickers twice and then gives it. We will be counting to 10, not because we must, but because counting is a soft rope that keeps the night from unravelling. We begin with a smell. It is a mix of wet rope, tar and wood that learned the tide a long time ago. The pier is a long finger pointing at a patient horizon. The boards creak in a voice that says carry on. Morning and night are ideas here. Work is the only clock that matters. A crane rests like a tall bird that has decided to be practical. A stack of pallets sits with calm purpose. A ledger waits on a shelf that looks like it was built by someone who liked squares. On paper the cargo is simple. Syrup, glassware, vinegar, flavouring extract. These words are polite. They do not argue. They fill columns without needing adjectives. That is why offices love them. A small office faces the water. Its window is streaked by salt and ambition. Inside, a clerk keeps 2 pens, one for visitors, one for truth. The visitor pen is bold and leaves a dark line. The truth pen is quiet and tidy. The quiet pen wins most nights. On the pier, a dolly rolls. Its single squeak keeps time like a sleepy metronome. 2 men steer a crate toward the waiting truck. They do not hurry. Haste is loud. Loud draws eyes. This is a place that pays its rent with silence. A man who calls himself the foreman checks a list that is shorter than the real list. He touches each line with a finger as if to bless it. He is irreligious. He is loyal to schedules. Schedules are his liturgy. A long rope passes over a wooden roller polished by years. The rope knows the story by heart. Lift. Pause. Swing. Set down. The rhythm belongs to the pier. not to any single worker. New hands learn the rhythm without being told. Out on the water, a ferry announces itself with one short note. It is a signal, it is a habit. Habits are the signals that matter most. They create the background that lets unusual sounds stand out. We prefer no unusual sounds. If anyone asks what is in the crates, the answer is molasses. It is always molasses. Molasses is a friendly explanation. It is heavy, so it justifies careful steps. It is sticky, so it explains stains. It is sweet, so it invites no argument. A barrel marked vinegar waits near the scale. The scale is honest within a pound. The barrel is honest within a story. A cat sleeps on top and dreams of fish that tell no tales. Down the pier a man pretends to fish. He has no bait. He watches the road that leads to the city. He watches the watchman. He watches the sky for weather that could turn an easy plan into a clumsy plan. He is paid to be bored and is very good at it. There is a second entrance to the pier. It looks like a mistake on an old blueprint. The gate hinges without bragging. A truck will use it later when the main road grows curious. The second entrance is the favourite child of routine. In the office, the clerk works a stamp that is tired in the right way. The stamp says a date and a little approval. The mark is light. Heavy ink draws questions. Light ink suggests the day is moving along just fine. A ledger page shows columns that march in quiet formation. Item, count, weight, destination. The numbers do not shout. They nod. They agree. They make room for a remark in the margin. The remark says, cover with blankets if wind shifts after midnight. Blankets stand ready on a shelf. They know how to hush glass. They come from a hotel that believes in order. They carry the smell of laundry soap and steam and 1,000 nights when nothing dramatic happened. The truck backs to the lip of the pier. The engine mutters a steady apology for existing. A guide waves a hand once. That is enough. The tailgate kisses the ramp. The ramp approves. A crate arrives and settles on the truck bed. The driver places a strip of felt under one corner, because corners have opinions. He doesn't speak. He has learned that the best sentences at a pier are made of gestures. We pause with the tide. A gull floats on the air as if it were resting on a rumour. Far out a light shifts on a buoy. The buoy cares only for water, but ends at helping men who move boxes they call extract. A small book rides in the clerk pocket. It holds a smaller truth. It says things like, do not trust the middle plank near the ladder. It says things like, use the old dolly for the heavy crate with the timid nail. It says things like, leave at 2:20, not on the hour. The crane groans to remind us it exists. Then it goes back to being a patient thing. Its cable is brushed with grease that has seen every night since last fall. The cable does not remember headlines, it remembers friction and duty. A patrol car cruises by the top of the pier road. Its pace is conversational. The truck does not look, the men do not look. Looking is a kind of conversation. Silence is a better conversation. On the manifest, a crate is described as sample glassware. The word sample is a charm. It shrinks interest. It suggests small portions and polite afternoons. The manifest is a quilt of such charms. A longshoreman hums a tune with no words. The tune matches the sound of wheels on boards. He hums in the same key every night without thinking about it. This is how the body keeps time when the mind is busy with balance. A tug pushes a barge past the pier mouth. The tug looks modest. Modest things can move heavy things if they have the right angle and the right patience. The pier respects that. We walk to the end where the water deepens. Here the posts are scarred with rings that tell the height of storms. History is written in salt and dents. No one reads it out loud. Everyone knows how the story goes. Sometimes the pier hosts a larger ship. When that happens, the story changes shape but not tone. There are more lists. There are more men. The rules stay the same. Move slowly, sign neatly, keep your hat on, and your voice low. The city side of the operation is a set of small courtesies. A phone call ahead of time that mentions chairs or syrup or glass samples. A light left on in a back room that says we are awake and ready. A door that sticks less when lifted first. These niceties keep nights smooth. We consider the tools again. The best tool at the pier is the pause. A pause before stepping, a pause before lifting, a pause before answering. Each pause removes one future problem. A day full of pauses is a night with fewer story. There is bookkeeping in the open, and bookkeeping that minds its own business. The open books balance. The private notes keep promises from fraying. Both are necessary. A man who tries to keep only one kind of book ends at talking too much. A boy runs a message to the office. He hands it over with 2 fingers and leaves without curiosity. He has been taught that curiosity is expensive. He will learn that a calm life is profitable in its own quiet way. The message says wind changing after 2. That means blankets and slower turns and an extra strap on the top row. The change is not dramatic. The answer is not dramatic. The work absorbs the weather the way the harbour absorbs wakes. We watch a hand fold labels. The labels say things that invite no further questions. The font is plain, the ink is dry, the corners are square. There is comfort in squares. Over time, a pier collects customs. There is a hook everyone touches before stepping onto the ramp. There is a knot everyone ties the same way, even if they learned another way at home. There is a story about a winter when the water froze and the work walked across the ice one small sled at a time. Customs make a place into a team. There is also a rhythm to the arrivals. A small boat just after midnight when the moon is small, a dray from the rail yard at 1:10 that prefers not to wait, a ferry horn at 1:30 that says this is your window. The truck leaves at 2:20 because 2:20 has always been kind. If you are drifting, that is perfect. When you return, we will still be here at the edge of the boards counting straps and breathing with the tide. The truck is almost full. The last layer must look like the first layer. Order on the surface convinces the eye that there is order all the way down. The driver places the final blanket and presses a corner with the back of his hand. The press is a test. It is a blessing. The foreman signs a form with the visitor pen and then adds a dot with the truth pen. The dot is his private mark. It means the numbers on the line include weather and patience. A final check of the tires, a final glance at the sky. The small office light goes dark and then bright again and then dark once more. That is the goodbye signal that is a signal. The truck eases away from the pier with a grace learned from repetition. Wheels cross the seam from wood to cobble. The load shifts a breath and then settles. The sound is confident but modest. Behind us, the pier returns to its eternal work. It holds up wood, it lets down rope, it shelters a cat. It counts nothing and somehow keeps score of everything. We do not wave. Waving is a kind of announcement. We do not announce. We depart as if we had been here yesterday and will be here tomorrow. Which is true. That is why it works. The road ahead is a ribbon of lamps and puddles. The city pretend to sleep. We pretend to furniture moving within it. The schedule ahead is a soft spine. We will bend with it. We will not snap. If anyone asks at the next corner what we carry, we will say molasses. We will say it the way a clerk says good afternoon. We will say it and keep rolling, because the best ending to a pier story is wheels that do not lose their calm. And so the chapter closes with a simple fact. Ports and piers are not stages for drama, they are shelves. They hold the day steady while the night does its errands. We thank the shelves, and we drive on. Roads in these years are opinions more than promises. Some are paved with a plan. Many are simply suggestions sitting by wagon wheels and rain. A truck must treat each surface like a conversation with an elder. Be respectful. Go slow. Listen first. We leave the pier and choose the street that has no reason to be noticed. Not the shortest way, not the widest way, the way that looks like errands. The lamps make small islands of light. The puddles make small seas. The truck prefers to be a quiet ship that crosses both. The Overland problem is really a bundle of small problems tied with twine. Tires, mud, mileage, bridges that have secret moods, police who enjoy questions, streetcars that retire in the worst possible places. We solve each small problem with a small practice. The driver keeps a tiny book that does not want to be important. Inside the covers are distances and habits. Pier to orchard 3 miles and a careful hill. Orchard to back lane 1.7 if the fruit stand is asleep. 2.1 if the fruit stand has opinions. Each line saves a minute of thinking later when thinking is expensive. Tires come first because tires come first in every story that involves trucks. Air is a kind of promise. Too little and the sidewalls gossip themselves into trouble. Too much and the centre wears a groove that tells on you. The driver taps each tire with a little stick and listens for a note that only he can hear. Mud is next. Mud loves to invent emergencies. It waits in the shade where gutters leak. It waits in the low spots that the city forgot to argue with. The answer to mud is momentum without speed, a gentle push that doesn't invite the wheels to spin. If you spin, you dig a story you will have to explain. If you glide, you leave only a footprint that rain can tidy. Mileage is the silent accountant in the cab. Fuel is money. Routes cost more than maps admit. The driver has learned the places where a block looks short but acts long. He has learned to trade 1 U-turn for 3 slow turns that eat less fuel and produce fewer remarks. We pass a streetcar at rest. Its pole points at the wire like a finger that has an opinion about electricity. The tracks are wet. The driver takes the crossing at a flatter angle so the rear wheels do not argue with the grooves. Small angles keep knights from writing paragraphs. A policeman stands on a corner near a bakery that is still warm with its own good news. The policeman likes questions. He prefers the kind that make people talk about themselves. The driver has a script that contains no scenery. He says deliveries. He says chairs. He says back entrance. He says good evening. He does not say more. Words are fuel too. Use only what is required. There is a bridge ahead that looks honest in daylight and thoughtful at night. It was built for wagons and then improved for trucks by people who valued optimism. The sign tells a weight that is both true and flexible. The truck knows how to cross. Enter slow. Keep to the middle boards that have learned loyalty. Do not stop near the crown. Do not brag with the throttle on the far side. If you have drifted, that is perfect. When you return, we will still be rolling at the pace of a paragraph that respects commas. The city owns a library of noises. Dogs, windows, shoes on steps, radios that try to sleep but do not. The truck adds a note that is low and calm. It is the sound of a job that intends to end as neatly as it began. We keep a steady speed because change attracts eyes. Fast is a headline, slow is a complaint, steady is furniture. Furniture never gets pulled over. Now and then, a street narrows for reasons that go back to horses and markets. Barrels once stood where cars stand now. Stalls once spilled into the lane and then pulled back when rain told them to. The truck folds its mirrors a little and becomes a polite visitor. A boy on a bicycle races himself along the curb. He wins by a wheel and salutes no one in particular. The truck yields as if the boy outranks the job. That is how you earn an uneventful night. The route includes a hill that is small but self-important. The driver takes it in second gear and hums a tune that matches the engine. At the top, he lifts his foot before the crest, so the load does not shift when the street begins to tip down. This is a note the driver writes in muscle instead of pencil. Rain returns in a thin line. Wipers sweep and think about nothing. Puddles play tricks at corners. A shallow puddle looks deep. A deep puddle looks like a mirror and hides a pothole that thinks it is a well. The driver moves half a wheel to the left where the cobbles are higher. The crates do not notice. The blankets approved. We stop in a pocket of shadow near a lamp that flickers twice and then gives it. Stopping is part of going. A pause lets the city turn one page. When the page turns, new eyes appear and old eyes leave. A schedule that includes pauses is a schedule that is kinder to mistakes. There is a shortcut that everyone knows and therefore does not belong to us. We avoid it. We take the longer path that belongs to habit. Habits are private roads kept by patience. The driver checks the mirror for a shape that has been there too long. Nothing. He checks the street for the one window that always wakes when a truck makes the wrong sound. Its light stays dark. Good. The night is keeping its side of the bargain. We pass a garage where a man is teaching a carburetor to consider its future. He glances to, sees our canvas, sees the careful straps, and returns to his work. A well-strapped load is an introduction that ends the conversation. At the edge of downtown, a long avenue offers the temptation of speed. Do not accept. The stoplights are spaced to punish ambition. Take them as if you rehearsed with them in the afternoon. The trick is to arrive as they turn, without appearing to be the sort of person who tries tricks. A second truck waits 2 blocks behind, on a different street that pretend to be the same street. They are not a pair. Pairs get remembered. They are cousins who never meet in public. Each follows a clock that is accurate within 3 minutes and never argues with the other. Every few nights a new pothole appears. It sends invitations to the same old mistakes. The driver learned years ago to read puddles the way clerks read margins. A still surface means depth. A choppy surface means shallow. A line of dry stones means a friendly path. He steers for the friendly path and lets the springs write a small letter of thanks. There is a block we always approach with respect. It has a boarding house with one guest who loves to tell stories to policemen. On this block the truck sounds a touch smoother. On this block we shift a little earlier so the engine doesn't clear its throat. On this block we look like another piece of the night that has known this street since it was cobble and horsed. Mileage continues to add up with the calm of a clerk. The driver notes it without writing. He feels waste the way a cook could feel when a pot is about to boil over. Waste has a tone. Efficiency has a tone. He moves the pedal a finger width, and the tone becomes correct again. A problem arrives in the plain clothes it prefers. A truck ahead of us has stopped with its rear gate open and a mattress asking to escape. The driver slows without drama. We don't need to help. We need only to fit into the new rhythm of the street. This is the art. Do the normal thing so gently that it becomes invisible. We turn onto a lane that accepts only those who already know it. Laundry hangs over the alley like prayer flags for the god of routine. A dog lifts its head and decides the truck is part of the furniture of its dreams. It sleeps again. At the far end, the lane meets a street with a trolley barn. The rails gleam where wheels polished them today. The rest is a quiet field of dust. We cross slowly. The springs breathe, the crates murmur and then rest. A note on signals. We do not use horns unless a horn would be ordinary. We do not flash lights unless flashing is what every driver does at that corner. We borrow the habits of the street we are on and pay them back with careful timing. There is a police call box on the corner near the park. Sometimes an officer stands beside it and practices patience. Tonight the box keeps its own company. We roll by at the speed of trust. Trust is the speed that does not ask for details. The truck likes this work. It likes even loads and routes that curve more than they corner. It likes drivers who check straps at every red light without make a show of it. Machines are like people. They calm down when you tell them what happens next. We climb a gentle rise where the pavement changes colour. Colour means different mix. Different mix means different friction. The driver loosens his grip on the wheel for 2 breaths, so the tyres to find their way without being forced. Control is sometimes the art of not insisting. Ahead is the first drop point. It hides behind a row of buildings that share a back wall. The door we want is painted the colour of forgetfulness. It sticks unless you lift before you pull. The driver knows the trick. He learned it on a rainy Wednesday from a man who showed him without words. We stop with the rear just under the lip of the arch. The engine idles like a cat that has manners. The door opens on the second try because the second try is the correct try. The first try is for visitors. 2 helpers appear as if they were part of the wall. They wear caps with no opinions and shoes that could pass for office shoes if offices smelled like rope. The first crate comes down with the grace of a statement that has been rehearsed. Inside the room, the floor is chalked with boxes that only exist in someone's mind. Space is time. If you put the box in the wrong square, you will reach for it at the wrong minute 2 days from now. So we do not. We place it where the chalk suggests, and the chalk is always right. The ledger here is short. 2 lines and a mark that looks like half a star. The half star means weather paid 3% of the bill. Weather gets its share even when it does not show up. It always reserves a chair. Back at the truck, we check the straps. The load is lighter by a polite amount. The centre of gravity smiles and moves an inch toward the cab. The driver feels it the way a sailor feels a new breeze on his cheek. We roll on to the second stop. This one is a garage that used to be a stable and still has the manners of a stable. It likes things returned to their hooks. It likes floors swept to the door. It likes quiet voices that know the names of tools. We give it what it likes. A man in coveralls signs the book with letters that look like fence posts. He adds a tiny dot to the corner of the page. The dot means keep the empties for Friday. The dot speaks a language that only people who do this work care to learn. We leave by a different route, because arrival and departure should not always rhyme. This route has a school, with a yard that keeps its leaves even in winter. The fence holds the leaves the way a library holds books. Everything in its place. A trolley bell rings 3 blocks over. That is our cue to pause at the corner for 1 count of 5. When we go, the timing will be right, and we will be a glance that becomes a memory, that becomes nothing at all. Another bridge. This one is stone, and believes in dignity. It was built when men wore hats to cross the street. We slow to match its age. The river below carries moonlight as if it were rent money. We pay our share with silence, and pass on. If you are sleeping, good. If you are awake, breathe with the engine for a few lines. In, the pistons rise. Out, the exhaust writes a small cloud and erases it with motion. In, the wheel makes its quiet corrections. Out, the city accepts the apology of rubber on stone. Our last mile of this leg is a study in respect. Respect for corners that pretend to be squares. Respect for gates that pretend to be doors. Respect for people who would rather not be bothered by any of this. Respect is cheaper than repairs. We arrive at the garage that keeps the ledgers that matter. The sign out front says repairs and tyres and oil. The truth inside says schedules and people who keep promises. The door opens as if it knew we were coming, because it did. We always come at this minute on this kind of night. The engine rests. The straps fall loose. The blankets fold themselves with our hands. The ledger gets 2 new lines and a quiet flourish. The driver writes the mileage with care, because numbers that are treated well behave themselves later. Outside, the rain has turned into a mist that can only be seen by lamps. The city looks cleaner than it is. The truck looks more tired than it is. Both are fine. They have done what was planned. The Overland problem never goes away. It returns every night with new puddles and old corners. The answer also returns. It is the same answer written in different handwriting. Go steady. Choose routes that are boring and proud of it. Treat mud like a rumour. Treat bridges like grandparents. Treat tyres like friends who remember birthdays. We roll the last yards into the bay and set the brake with a small pull that feels like placing a period at the end of a sentence that has earned its rest. There is a desk that looks like any other desk. It has a blotter with a soft corner. It has a lamp with a shade the colour of tea. It has a drawer that sticks for the first inch and then glides. This is where the quiet paperwork lives. The paperwork we can show lives on top. It is clean. It is lined. It has headings that stand up straight. It tells a story about glassware and syrup and sample bottles for display. It is a friendly story. It fits in a folder that anyone can admire. The paperwork we cannot show lives in the drawer. It is shy. It has pencil notes that lean a little. It talks about times of night and which streets pretend to be empty. It talks about people by the names they use when they are working. It talks about the price of patience. We begin with names. A name is a coat. You wear one for the pier. You wear a different one for the garage. You wear a simple one on the phone and a special one on a dotted line. Each coat fits a room. Each coat keeps the weather off a plan. There is a man who signs for crates at the water. His name here is a plain word that sounds like it grew up on the dock. The same man signs for the same crates at a back door 3 miles inland. There his name is a plain word that sounds like it grew up in a quiet office. Both names are true enough for the hour. On the wall hangs a calendar that is 2 months behind. It is a decoy. It tells a visitor that nothing urgent has happened here in a while. The real calendar lives inside the cover of a ledger. It is a list of nights and notes. It is tidy as a narrow garden. Fronts are the scenery that protects the play. A beverage company that is proud of its seltzer. A bakery that loves labels and sacks. A garage that is devoted to grease and schedules. None of these are lies. They are true enough to stand a visit. They are true enough to be boring. Boring is armour. A front works best when it has small needs. A soft drink company needs crates and bottles and a reason to roll a truck after midnight. A bakery needs sacks and twine and an excuse for flour on every cuff. A garage needs ledgers that can hold any number without raising their eyebrows. Receipts are the polite handshakes of the night. They say I was here and you were here and we agreed on a number. The smartest ones say very little else. They are short as a yawn. They do not invite stories. There are 2 books. One book sits on the desk. It is the book that the day shift would admire. The other book lives in the drawer that slides after the first inch. The first book balances coins. The second book balances minutes. The second book has a style. It refuses drama. It loves small words and smaller numbers. When it must say something delicate, it says it with a habit. That means it puts a dot in the corner, or tilts a letter, or underlines a word that would look plain to anyone else. A man comes in with a hat, and a question that is a question. He sets the hat on the radiator so it can learn the room. He says we will need chairs on Thursday for a meeting that wants to be forgotten by Friday. The clerk writes chairs and a tie and the colour of the hat. The colour is for later. The colour means pay attention. Aliases protect people from being too useful to strangers. They also protect sleep. If a phone rings in the morning and a voice asks for a person who does it exist, no one has to lie. We can say there is no one here by that name, that answer to be true. The quiet truth is better than a noisy lie. A front has a public ledger. It can welcome a visit from an inspector without breaking a sweat. It can show orders for bottles and soap and twine. It can show a bill from the printer for labels that say polite things. It can show a rent receipt and a tax stub and a repair bill for a door that sticks. These papers form a fence. The fence keeps cows in and questions out. Sometimes the papers must travel. That is when envelopes become characters. There is the brown envelope that carries routine things and would be dull even if it sang. There is the thin white envelope that carries a single sheet with a single number and nothing else. There is the small grey envelope that never lives on a desk. It lives in a coat and goes home with a person who knows where to put it. Ink has moods. On busy nights the clerk uses the dry stamp so that the mark does not shine. A shiny mark calls the eye. A dry mark whispers. The whisper says, "Carry on." Copy paper sits in a neat stack. The top sheet is ready to be brave. The bottom sheet is the conscience of the desk. It will become a list of promises that will be kept before dawn. Let us follow one small receipt from birth to rest. A truck arrives at a door that once knew horses. A crate leaves the truck and enters a room with chalk lines that mean eans. A man makes a mark for the weight and another mark for the hour. The mark for the hour is more important. Weight can be guessed by hands. Hours must be honoured by clocks. The man tears off a slip and hands it to the driver. The driver folds it twice and puts it in a pocket that always holds folded things. Later, the slip joins a small pile on a desk with a lamp the colour of tea. The clerk counts the slips by touch and by smell. He knows fresh ink. He knows damp paper. He knows the scent of a street. Then the clerk writes a line in the quiet book. 2 to Orchard, 3 to the stable garage. Weather took a breath at 1:40. He adds the small dot for patience. The dot means we did not rush, when rushing would have been rude. Sometimes the paperwork is it paper, sometimes it is the position of a key on a hook. Hook 1 means normal, hook 2 means adjust, hook 3 means do not speak this afternoon. Keys can be ledgers, hooks can be columns. Phones ring now and then. The ring itself is a choice. 2 short rings mean the sort of question that anyone can answer. 1 long ring means the sort of question that should be answered by the person who keeps the drawer book. 3 short rings mean do not answer at all, let it sleep. There are also messages that are never written. They are folded into the schedule. They say the second truck leaves 5 minutes after the first. They say never leave on the hour. They say take the longer street if the wind is wrong. If you tried to write them down, they would spill and stain. As habits, they are clean. We pause to consider stamps. A rubber stamp is a small machine that makes approval look official. The clerk has 4. One says received, one says paid, one says returned in the polite sense that means not today. The 4th is just a date. The date is the most honest stamp. It tells the truth without volunteering a story. Signature is a craft. The visitor's signature should look proud. The private signature should look tired. Tired signatures do not invite conversation. They also pass through more doors. An office that keeps 2 books must also keep 2 kinds of light. There is bright light for counting coins and checking bottle caps. There is low light for counting minutes and checking weather. The low light slows the mind into carefulness. Carefulness is the friend of sleep and the enemy of mistake. Receipts have destinations the way people have hometowns. Some are born to live in a box with string around it. Some are born to live inside the cover of a ledger. Some are born to live one night in a pocket and then go to the stove at dawn and become warmth. Each path is correct. The goal is it record-keeping. The goal is promise-keeping. Now and then a person from the day world visits at night. They bring the day with them like a coat that does not fit the room. They want bright answers. They want clear lines. The night offers them tea and delays. Tea and delays are the mothers of patience. After patience, most questions raise themselves and go home. A note about handwriting. Printing is for visitors, cursive is for friends. A slant to the right means hurry without haste. A slant to the left means watch the corner near the lamppost. A loop closed tight means pay in cash. A loop left open means pay in kindness. The office keeps a box for rubber bands and a box for string. The string is for plans that will travel. The rubber bands are for plans that will return. If you bind a plan with string and it comes back anyway, that plan has a lesson inside it. Every few weeks the draw book reaches its last page. This is a quiet ceremony. The clerk closes it and places its spine down under two other books. It will sleep there for a season. A new book opens. The first page is always the hardest. The first line is always the softest. Let us visit the printer who helps the fronts keep their dignity. His shop smells like ink and warm metal. He sets type that says cordial syrup and tasting set, and made with care. He sells labels that could sit on any shelf and make friends with any jar. He does not ask what the labels will meet in the world. He asks how many and by when. The printer keeps his own secret ledger. It is about customers. It is about mistakes. He writes the word lesson beside each one, and then what the lesson was. Do not let a label talk louder than the bottle. Down the street Otary works late. He stamps papers in a room that echoes. He likes the sound. It feels like progress. He doesn't know exactly what he is part of. He does not need to know. His job is fur ink and the comfort of rectangles. Bankers join the story at a distance. They see balances that rise and fall with the moon and the rain, and the appetite of a city for a certain kind of evening. They shake their heads and then nod. Money is a language they speak without adjectives. A gentle word about envelopes that change hands without witnesses. They exist. They should be boring. They should never be fat. They should fold flat. They should travel the way a bookmark travels, quietly, with purpose. They should never surprise a pocket. Let us return to the desk with the lamp the colour of tea. The clerk opens the drawer and removes the quiet book. He turns to a page that is almost full and adds a final line for the night. Then he draws a small square beside the tine. The square is his way of saying the shape of the hour was correct. He places one receipt into the top ledger and one into the lower book. The top ledger smiles for the day shift. The lower book keeps the promise for the night. The difference between the books is its honesty. It is audience. What would happen if an inspector came through the door right now? He would see labels that say cordial syrup and tasting set. He would see crates that do not rattle. He would see brooms that have done their job and blankets that smell like laundry. He would find the calendar that is 2 months behind, and he would relax. He would ask for the top ledger, and he would get it. He would not ask for the drawer because the drawer is it alive to him. If he did ask, the clerk would smile and offer tea. Tea cools a room. Tea begins a story about how the drawer sticks, and how the key likes a certain angle, and how the person with the key is on an errand. Then the phone would ring 2 short rings, and the inspector would decide he has what he needs. The paperwork you cannot show anyone is only dangerous when it tries to be clever. Clever is a hat with a feather. The knight does not need feathers. The knight needs cloth that wears well and doesn't mind rain. So the paperwork is plain. It speaks softly. It holds only as many words as will fit on a single breath. A last word on receipts. The best receipt is the one that confirms a useful silence. It confirms that the truck came and went. It confirms that a crate arrived where it could rest and become invisible among other honest crates. It confirms that the schedule was a kind host. It does not say more. The lamp clicks off. The drawer slides in. The blotter rests. The desk looks like a desk again. The room holds the shape of the night and lets it fade. Outside, the street keeps its promise to forget. If you are drifting, that is perfect. When you return, we will be with the night shift, as they count lanterns and footfalls, and the number of times a clock sighs between 2:20 and 2:30. Between now and then, let the paperwork do what it does best. Let it hold the world still long enough for sleep to arrive. Night is a schedule with the lights turned low. It is a secret. It is a routine. It begins when shop doors click and windows decide to be reflections. It begins when the street forgets its daytime arguments and remembers how to breathe. The night shift arrives the way clouds arrive, quietly, in order. No one needs to point. Each person knows a place to stand and a task to start. The rule is simple. Make the city drowsy and keep it that way. Curfew is a word with many meanings. In some towns it is a bell, in others it is a story told to children. In cities it is a mood. A street at midnight has manners that noon does not. Doors hush themselves. Boots learn to be velvet. Voices drop into the pocket of the coat. Our work fits into that mood. We do not cut across it. We float inside it. A truck waits 1 block away with the engine at a polite idle. A door stands half open with a hinge that has learned to mind its own feelings. A watchman counts steps in 4s and never gets to 5. Lanterns are the night shift in a single object. They are small suns that understand humility. A lantern does not shout. It offers a bowl of light and says, "Please, you can carry it. You can hang it on a nail. You can set it on a crate, and it will mind the edge for you." A good lantern has a steady flame. A steady flame is better than a bright flame. Brightness attracts. Steadiness guides. The man with the lantern checks the wick with a pin and touches the glass with a cloth that used to be a shirt cuff. The cloth does not complain. It prefers second careers. Lookouts are not heroes. They are neighbours who learned patience. They knit, they whittle, they smoke a pipe that never gets smaller. They sit on stoops that have catalogued every evening since the bricks were young. Their job is to notice patterns and clear their throat when the pattern breaks. A lookout has 3 signals. One is a cough that means delay 5 minutes. One is a knock that means change the order of the crates. One is no signal at all, which means the best thing of all, carry on. We begin with the watch round. The watchman walks a figure 8 through the building. He touches 2 hooks and 1 window and 3 door frames. Touching is the checklist that never breaks down. He listens for the sound of a floorboard that has become opinionated. He makes a note to step over it when the load passes. Upstairs, an office keeps 1 lamp lit in the corner. That is for comfort. Buildings sleep better when a lamp hums softly. On the desk, a cup holds pencils with dull points. Sharp points tear paper and nerves. The night prefers rounded edges. Outside, a clock on a church tower does its duty to everyone at once. It tells the time to people who are awake, and people who are asleep, and people who are pretending to be both. The chime is a soft broom that sweeps the hour into place. We stage the move like a choir. First the dolly, then the blanket, then the crate, then the step, and the breath, and the second step. Breathing is part of lifting. A held breath wakes trouble. A slow breath keeps corners from remembering they are corners. Curfew creates shortcuts that exist only at night. A side yard becomes a hallway. A fire escape becomes a staircase with an outdoor view. A laundry line becomes a curtain that hides a door. The city transforms without raising its voice. Now and then the night shift meets the day shift by accident. A baker arrives early, a milk wagon clinks into the block, a newspaper truck scatters dawn in small squares. We nod, we borrow their normal, we let their motion wash over ours and make it look inevitable. The first run of crates goes to a room that smells like cardboard and soap. Chalk squares on the floor tell us where pine belongs. The chalk squares are as strict as good manners. Put the crate where the square expects, and the next hour will welcome you. Put it elsewhere, and the next hour will hold a grudge. A lookout clears his throat once. That means pause. We pause. The truck idles and counts to 12 the slow way. A patrol wagon passes at the far corner, drifting the way a moon drifts behind thin cloud. The lookout taps the rail twice. That means proceed as if you never stopped. We proceed. Lantern light has edges. The edges are the best part. Work happens just inside the edges. Faces live in the border where light is a suggestion. In that border, people are present without becoming scenery. That is where sleep lives too. A second man carries a small clock. It is a pocket watch. It is a kitchen clock with a handle. He sets it on a crate and listens. The tick is a coach that never raises its voice. It keeps the pace. It calls the turns. It forgives the small stumbles that happen when a shoe finds a nail head. Some city blocks have their own private curfew. The butcher sleeps early. The tailor sleeps light. The woman on the second floor watches every night until 1 and then dreams. The boy on the corner throws a ball against a wall until the ball decides to call it a night. Knowing these private curfews is the difference between smooth and messy. We step under a stair that enjoys echo. Echo is fine in daylight. Tonight we pad the step with a strip of felt so it speaks in a library voice. Felt is the diplomat of materials. It convinces wood to keep confidences. The night shift keeps a weather diary in the margins of the ledger. Fog arrived at 1. Wind moved south at 1:40. Rain became mist at 2:10. These are our poetry. These are tools. Wind decides which street is short. Fog decides which street is wide. Mist decides whether the canvas will complain. A city guard appears at the end of the block with a stride that says he believes in sidewalks. We give him sidewalks. We stay in the street with wheels that talk softly. He tips his hat. We tip our schedule. Both of us continue to believe in sidewalks. A phone line runs along the back wall of the building. It is for emergencies that will never introduce themselves as emergencies. The code is simple. 2 rings means the second truck leaves sooner. 3 rings means use the other door. 1 ring that never repeats means sit still and talk about the weather for a full minute. We talk about the weather. This is not an alibi. This is a practice. Talking about the weather shapes the mouth into calm. Calm mouths make calm choices. The weather conversation ends on a sentence that has no sharp corners. Then we work again. Streetlights hold their own curfew. Some go out at 2:30 to prove a point to the budget office. Others burn until dawn because the switch was buried under paint years ago. We know which are which. We match our pauses to their habits the way a dancer matches a partner. The lookouts rotate. This is ought to stay awake. This is to stay ordinary. The man who knits moves to the stoop with the peeling paint. The woman with the book moves to the step near the iron fence. The boy with the cap becomes a boy with a newspaper under his arm. Ordinary is a disguise that does not crack. Inside the building, the stairwell counts each step with a small sigh. On the landing, a window is propped with a stick. The stick is the right length. because it was made by trial and error and a pocket knife. The window will not slam tonight. Sleep has enough thunder elsewhere. A note about keys. The night shift loves key rings that do not jingle. Leather holds them quiet. Each key has a shape that the hand remembers in the dark. A key that finds its lock without eyes is a lullaby in metal. We move 3 crates to a room with a refrigerator that no longer works as a refrigerator, it works as a story. If anyone asks, the crates contain parts that might one day become a refrigerator again. The room nods along. Rooms love to be included in plans. Curfews are not only for people, they are for trucks. A truck should not be seen in the same place at the same time twice in 1 week. The truck keeps its own calendar on a card near the visor. Tuesday orchard, Thursday the stable garage, Saturday the lane with the laundry. Patterns that are predictable to us are invisible to others if they are spread thin and folded neat. A man with a broom sweeps the alley as if he is paid by the ounce. He is part of our work, but he makes our work possible. Clean alleys are quieter. Swept stones hold footfalls like a secret. The broom is the most important instrument in the orchestra we are playing. Here is a small ritual. Before the second run, the driver tightens a strap by 1 notch and then loosens it by half a notch. This teaches the strap who is in charge while allowing it to feel respected. Straps that feel respected do not sulk. They do not squeak. They accept their night with grace. A cat appears and decides our work is boring. This is the approval we wanted. Cats are experts in boredom. When a cat approves, proceed. You might ask about codes and passwords. There are none. There are simple phrases that do not change with the weather. The phrase is, "We brought the chairs." The answer is, "Bring them to the back." Both sentences are true. Chairs are any heavy thing that wants to rest. The back is any door that minds its own business. We carry a lantern into a hallway that smells faintly of soap and last winter. The floor wears a runner made from old rug. The runner keeps shoes from telling the building too much. We set the lantern on a shelf that once held hats. Hats remember everything and tell no one. The lookout coughs twice. That means a patrol has turned onto the street and then changed its mind. We put the last crate down and pretend to discuss hinges. Hinges support any conversation. They are the bones of doors, and doors are the bones of building. A minute passes. The cough does not return. The driver picks up a pencil and writes a single line in a pocketbook. Delay 1 minute. The pencil puts the book away. The book keeps the minute for some future plan that will require a little credit. Curfews change with seasons. Summer has longer light but more noise. Winter has early dark but ice that wants to write its own story. Autumn is polite and asks permission before raining. Spring is careless and drops branches where you need to turn. The night shift knows how to dress for each season and how to plan for each mood. A policeman on foot appears at the mouth of the alley. He pauses to smoke. He counts to 10 in his head because that is what he does when he smokes. We count to 10 with him because that is what we do when a man counts to 10 in our story. Counting together is the quietest form of cooperation. The lantern in the hallway gutters once and regains itself. The man with the pin adjusts the wicker hair width. A hair width is enough to save a night. Big fixes are mostly for day. Night is a kingdom of hair width adjustments. A clock in a nearby kitchen strikes 2:15 with a tone that sounds like a spoon against a jar. That is our cue to pack the dolly for the second run. We follow the same path we wore earlier. Paths are easier the second time, if the first time was kind. We pass a window with lace that has decided to look like frost. Behind the lace, a woman sleeps in a chair. A radio whispers a weather report from last week. We give the window a wide berth. Sleep is an ally that deserves respect. On the curb, a pair of boots waits like punctuation. Someone will need them at dawn. We step around them so that someone can find their morning exactly where they left it. The night shift keeps a simple creed. Do not fix what the day will forgive. Do not move what the day has placed where it wants it. Leave behind no mystery that daylight would want to solve. We arrive at the truck. The engine breathes evenly, the headlights remain off. A small sidelight glows like a thought that helps but does not insist. The driver checks the straps again. He cannot help it. He is a person who believes in gravity and courtesy. The second route leaves on the shrug between 2:20 and 2:21. Shrugs are our favourite moments. They are pockets in tie where attention loosens. In a shrug you can move a piano or a promise. Tonight we move both in spirit. We roll. The lookout becomes a pedestrian with his hands in his pockets. The man with the lantern becomes a reader at a window. The watchman becomes a shadow on a wall that looks like a coat hung to dry. Everyone becomes ordinary as if they were born that way, which they were. A note about silence. Silence isn't the absence of sound, it is the presence of the right sounds. A low engine, the small whine of a dolly wheel, the click of a latch that means contentment. These sounds tell the street that nothing unusual is happening. The street believes them. The city has begun to think about morning. Milk routes, bakery ovens, first trams whispering awake. We aim to finish before the first schoolyard laugh. Laughter is the sunrise of memory. Before laughter, nights fade cleanly. After laughter, nights have to explain themselves. At the last stop, a door leads to a room that smells like lemons and documents. A man signs for the crates with a pen that has seen more signatures than arguments. He thanks the driver by not making conversation. Gratitude can be quiet. We place the lantern on the floor while the last blanket folds into itself. The flame leans and then stands up straight. It is proud of us in a small way. We nod back to the flame because we are sentimental in a small way. The truck noses toward the garage that keeps the ledgers that matter. The streets widen as if they are inhaling for dawn. Slow waves of air move under the bridges. The river becomes silver as if a coin were being polished beneath it. At the bay, the watchman pulls the chain and the door rises like a thought in a kind mind. The truck rests under the roof. The engine stops, and the quiet becomes a blanket that covers everything. We tally the night. 2 runs, 1 pause, no questions. The ledger gets 3 lines and a small square beside the time. The small square is the mark we use for nights that kept their promises. The lantern's flame goes down with a grateful sigh. The lookout walks home by a route that looks like habit. The city decides to remember only what will help it tomorrow. That is generosity. If you are asleep, stay. If you are awake, let your breathing follow the pace of a street that has decided to trust you. In, the lamps dim one by one. Out. A door closes without a thought. In. The truck cools and clicks. Out. A bird tries one note and then saves the rest. The night shift ends with a soft rule. Leave the world aligned how you found it or a little better. The day will take it from here. The day is good at stories. The night is good at endings. We open on a road that has decided to be a mirror. Rain has pressed the dust into a quiet sheet. The truck rolls across its own reflection and tries not to notice. Attention is a habit. Tonight we prefer other habits. Dry agents share this road with us. Some are careful, some are curious, some are tired. They carry notebooks that would like to be novels and flashlights that would like to be lighthouses. Their job is to look for stories. Our job is to make sure there is only routine. Evasion sounds dramatic in the daytime. At night it is a set of manners. It is the art of being the least interesting thing on the street. It is a schedule with good posture. It is shoes that do not squeak and straps that do not sulk. The rain helps and hurts. It hides footprints. It also creates excuses to ask questions. Wet roads slow everyone. Slow is our favourite word if it is chosen and not forced. We aim for slow by design. Here is the rule. When the road and the agent and the weather all want a conversation, we answer with normal. Normal is a language with few verbs. It says good evening. It says going to the garage. It says yes sir, and then nothing else. Agents use maps that bloom with pins. The pins say here, here, and sometimes here again. We study those maps without seeing them. We learn which blocks invite attention and which blocks invite yawns. We collect yawns. A truck that wants to be invisible keeps its lights in working order. Every lamp, every lens, a missing tail light is a confession. A headlamp that flickers writes its own headline. We check our lights in a wall of wet brick before we turn the corner. The wall nods back with two calm circles. Agents watch for pairs. Two trucks, nose to tail. Two men who look at the same corner at the same time. Two phones that ring in neat sequence. We work alone or as cousins who never meet in public. If there must be two of anything, we separate them with errands and the patience of a librarian. At an intersection, a patrol car idles with the windows fogged. The officer wipes a circle with his sleeve and becomes a moon. We arrive as the light thinks about changing. Agents like drivers who act eager. We are not eager. We are a chair that slides back into place at the table. Evasion that is boring depends on three small tools. A watch that is 5 minutes wrong in the same way every night. A card with roots that feel like lullabies. A mouth that smiles only when spoken to, and even then only with the corners. The watch lives on the driver wrist and keeps 2 times. The watch face shows what it shows. The eyes know the offset. Each arrival is planned for the minute that looks accidental. That is the minute that no one writes down. The route card. It slides from the visor with a soft whisper. It lists turns as if they were errands on a slow day. Left at the laundry, pause at the post with the chipped paint, right where the dog that does not bark sleeps. The card reminds the driver of the rhythm and reminds the night that we have been here before. The mouth. Words are fuel. Spend little. Agents respect drivers who do not audition. A good sentence is 4 words long. 5 if it includes sir. A detail about tires. Agents notice spin. Spin writes on road and memory. We start from stops with the patience of a person counting small change. No show. No spray. Only forward. A detail about canvas. Canvas loves to flap. Flap is a flag that spells look over here. We tie the corners with a knot that has learned humility. We check the knots when we pause for lanterns and when the road changes its mind. Ties that do not speak are part of the disguise. On wet nights, brakes tell stories. Squeal is a confession. We learned long ago to add a quiet breath of pedal before the real press. The quiet breath wipes the wheel with kindness. Then the real press arrives without comment. An agent stands beneath a lamp with a notebook open like a butterfly. He is the problem. The problem is the person who wants to be seen noticing him. We pass with the speed of trust. Trust is a speed that arrives neither early nor late. It arrives like a bus schedule that hates headlines. If you have drifted, perfect. When you return, we will still be busy becoming boring. Evasion that is boring also lives in choices that happen long before the road. It lives in labels that do not glisten. It lives in invoices that use the same words every time. It lives in uniforms that look like the uniforms other people wear. A uniform that tries too hard writes a poem when a sentence will do. Agents listen for small lies. We do not offer any. We offer small truths that do not lead to doors. going to the garage, returning empties, bringing chairs for a meeting that already ended. Each truth is a hallway with no extra rooms. There is a checkpoint 3 nights out of 7 at the corner near the market. We never meet it, not by luck, by calendar. Our calendar wins not by hiding but by choosing another Tuesday, another curb, another dive that is politely wrong for a checkpoint. When we are asked to stop, we stop as if we had hoped to be asked. Hope is a posture. It rests the shoulders and keeps the voice warm. The driver opens the window with a crank that does not protest. Protests draw attention. We enjoy the window as if it were a fresh breeze and not a test. The agent asks where from and where to. We answer only the part that is a place. From the Pier District to the garage. What are you carrying? Chairs for a meeting. He looks at the canvas and sees the blankets that look like blankets. He sees straps that look like straps. He hears an engine that doesn't argue with itself. He hears no excuses. Excuses wake something in a listener. We let that thing sleep. Some agents are fond of corners. They wait where a hill meets a turn and where gravity turns engines into stories. We arrive at those corners with a gear already chosen. No downshift, no gasp. The truck steps through like a dancer who knows the floor. On rural stretches the wet road is a book. An agent can read, so can we. We leave tracks that say cautious. We leave tracks that say evenly spaced. We do not leave tracks that say tail light fought with ditch. We do not use shoulders unless the shoulder invites us with dry gravel like a welcome mat. Sometimes a car follows us too well. It keeps the same gap. It drinks the same puddles. That is not a citizen. That is a student of our night. We do not flee. We become duller. We indicate early and then change lanes with all the ambition of a tired librarian. Librarians can cross a city without anyone remembering the colour of their coat. If the car persists, we choose the next street that invites errands. We park under a lamp near a closed shop. The driver walks to a payphone that likes nickels. He stands with his back to the street and reads a small card as if it were a list for groceries. The follower grows bored. Boredom is our accomplice. A word about horns. Horns are arguments that cannot wait. We do not argue. We allow the world to be wrong for 3 seconds and then right itself. 3 seconds is cheaper than attention. A word about wipers. Wipers write a line across the night. Their tempo should be slower than the mind expects. People notice fast rhythms. They do not notice lazy ones. The driver sets the wipers to a patience that seems like an old habit. Old habits are invisible. Agents have partners. One asks questions. One counts shoes. One looks past you to the lids of barrels. We give them nothing to count except the obvious. The obvious is a full set of lug nuts. The obvious is a registration that is folded where a registration is expected to be folded. The obvious is a thermos that smells like coffee and not like ideas. At a rail crossing the gate lowers and holds us under its red thought. Waiting is an art. A driver who fidgets becomes a story. A driver who relaxes becomes scenery. We admire the paint on the gate and think about nothing. Nothing is very hard to question. When rain becomes fog, agents who are hunters become shepherds. They guide rather than chase. We let them guide. We like shepherds. They keep wolves away from both flocks. We make room for their rhythm and applaud in our heads. We aim to use streets that have rules already built in. Streets with posted speeds that are achievable. Streets with lights that grant long greens. Streets with curb cuts that make turns feel inevitable. We avoid alleys that require performance. Performance is for stages. We prefer desks. Now and then, a lantern in a doorway gives a tiny rock from side to side. That is the lookout. Say, adjust your line like a seamstress adjusts a hem. We adjust. The truck clears a stack of crates that do not belong to us. We pass as if we had been measured for this space. We were. The tape was patience. An agent waves us over with 2 fingers. 2 fingers are almost a courtesy. We pull in with gratitude. Gratitude is a tone that changes outcomes. He shines a light over the canvas. The light finds nothing that wants a conversation. He shines the light in the cab and meets a book of routes that lists only honest streets. He meets a driver who looks like he has always been exactly where he is. He lets us go. In some districts, agents favour the theatre of a raid. Sirens, running, boxes held high. We ensure those theatre nights happen elsewhere. The way to do that is to be predictably dull in our square of the map. Theatre prefers surprises. We offer none. Rain can make a truck chatter on downhill grades. We learn to touch the pedal before the grade and ask the engine to help. The engine likes to help. When the engine helps, brakes hold their tongue. The greatest tool of evasion is a door that opens easily, not because we dash through it, because we do not draw a crowd while we persuade it. A sticky door summons neighbours and stories. A smooth door lets a crate pass from street to room with the dignity of a thought completing itself. Agents write reports. Reports collect oddities. We audition for the paragraph called "Nothing Unusual Observed." It is the most beautiful paragraph in the world. It lets everyone go to bed. If you have drifted again, that is perfect. When you return, we will be somewhere between 2 lamps that share a puddle and a promise. Cities remember the nights that were noisy. They forget the nights that were careful. We live in the forgetting. We build our work from small stones that fit the hand. We leave those stones where footsteps will not trip. A detail about speed. Speed is it miles per hour. Speed is the difference between you and the mood of the street. If the street is sleepy, you must be sleepier. If the street is brisk, you must be brisk without being eager. Eager is a colour agent to see in the dark. A detail about stopping. Stopping is it a moment? It is a paragraph. Approach, decide, settle, breathe, release, move. Each sentence short and kind. That is how you do not spill stories onto the curb. Some agents know our faces, they do not know our nights. Faces are not dangerous. Habits are dangerous when they are loud. Our habits whisper. If questioned about routes, we admire the map and fail to have opinions. Opinions get remembered. Shrugs do not. We shrug with respect for the office doing the questioning. Respect is a disguise that never wears out. On the outskirts, the road becomes 2 dark lines pulled across a field. The truck follows the line that belongs to patience. A farmhouse light flicks on and then off. A dog barks once as if it forgot the second bark. The world is telling us we are ordinary. We accept. Back in town, the gutters steam. A trolley sighs in its barn. A bakery opens its mouth to the street and breathes sweet air. These are the signs that dawn is rehearsing. We prefer not to compete with dawn. Dawn always wins. So we finish. We return to the garage that keeps the ledgers that matter. We park with the rear square to the chalk line. We set the brake like a person placing a glass on a shelf. The engine stops. The truck clicks as metal cools. The rain makes small grammar on the roof. The ledger receives the night in 3 lines. Route B, light rain, 2 short delays that did not become stories, a small square beside the tide. The small square is our medal. It says the night stayed dull and proud of it. We hang the coat that is a name on the same hook where it always hangs. We put the watch with the offset in the drawer that always sticks for an inch. We turn down the lamp to the setting that tells the room it's in rest. Outside, an agent closes his notebook and wonders why some nights never make good paragraphs. He will learn that most of the world runs on such nights. He will learn that the absence of a story is the smoothness of a gear. He will learn that boring is a craft. If you are sleeping, stay. If you are awake, a last thought. Evasion that is boring is thus a trick. It is a courtesy offered to the street. It is a promise to move carefully, so that nothing else has to move quickly. It is the slow art that carried a noisy decade to bed. Think of the city as a machine that breathes. In the morning it inhales workers and errands. At night it exhales them into kitchens and chairs. Our work lives in the breaths between. We do not fight the machine. We listen to it and find the gears that turn without complaint. Every machine needs oil. Our oil is time. We keep a small book of minutes. It says when a light changes. It says when a street is empty enough to be kind. It says when a watchman walks to the far end of his round and looks up at the moon. Time is the grease that lets a heavy plan move with finger pressure. A drop point is a perfectly ordinary place that learned an extra job. It might be a back room behind a shop that sells thread. It might be a loading dock that used to serve a stable. It might be a basement with 2 doors and a polite memory. The point is, knit the place. The point is the schedule that makes the place trustworthy. Timetables are upprinted. They are worn into habits. The truck turns left where it always turns left. It pauses where it always pauses. It arrives during the minute that feels like a shrug. People stay asleep when you arrive during a shrug. We begin our tour at the clock that lives above the streetcar barn. It is honest enough to use. We set our watches by its stubborn hands. Then we set our plan 5 minutes off its truth. The offset is our camouflage. It keeps us from sharing a stage with anyone else who trusts the same clock. From the clock we trace the lines of the day. The first bell at the factory calls the east side. At that moment the river road's empty for a breath. That breath is a window. Later the evening crowd moves and the theatre district opens its mouth to the street. That noise hides others. We circle these windows on a map that no one sees but everyone feels. Drop point 1 sits behind a grocer who talks with his hands. He closes at 9 and cleans until 10. At 10:15 he locks the front door and opens the back door to let the night breathe. We arrive at 10:20. Never on the quarter hour, on the shrug after it. Our crate slides across his tile like a thought that has chosen its words. Drop point 2 hides under a staircase near a newspaper office. Presses make the air taste like metal. The building hums at the edges. At midnight the editor shouts less, and the runners carry fewer bundles. That is our minute. A door sticks and then behaves. A hand truck rolls once and then rests with the dignity of a statue. Drop point 3 waits in a garage that rents itself to stories. During the day it is repairs and oil and small arguments about spark plugs. After dark it becomes a shelf where crates learn patience. The clock on the wall there is always 7 minutes fast. The owner likes being early for everything. We like that he likes it. We arrive by our watch at 2:20. By his clock it is 2:27. He smiles because we are early. We smile because we are on time. The city is a machine with belts and pulleys made of people. A street sweeper turns a corner at 1:10. A milk wagon claims a lane at 2. A patrol changes shift at 2:30. Each motion is a gear tooth. We tap our timetable into those teeth so that the machine carries us forward without knowing we are cargo. We keep notes that sound like weather. Lamp out near the bakery on Wednesdays. Whistle at the ferry at 1:32. Streetcar bell 3 blocks south is 3 beats long. These notes let us hear the city as if it were music. The music tells us where to rest and where to move. A timetable is also a promise. It promises that we will never arrive in groups. It promises that the second truck will always feel like a coincidence. It promises that a door will open the same way every time. People trust doors that act like clocks. The map on the wall in the office is quiet. It shows only streets and a river. The real map lives in a drawer. It is the same map, but with pencil marks that are small enough to be secrets. A short dash where we pause, a dot where we do not idle because a window above is too curious. A small square where we use the felt for the stare that echoes. Let us follow one route from river to rest. The truck leaves the pier at 2:20 by our watch. It takes the street that seems too narrow for a truck, but is exactly the right size for patience. At the first corner we count to 5, because the factory whistle across town will sound on 6, and we want to move under its cover. We pass the hotel with the velvet curtains. The night clerk reads a book that is longer than his shift. He turns a page at the same time every hour. Our front wheel reaches the crosswalk when his page turns. It is a rhythm we did not choose at first. Now we choose it every night. At the bakery, 2 men laugh in the alley as if the joke were in the flour and not in the words. Laughter is good cover. We time our downshift to their breath so that our engine sigh becomes part of the joke. The alley keeps the secret. Timetables are made of constraints. Rain adds minutes. Ice takes away streets. A parade steals a whole neighborhood and replaces it with music. We adjust not with clever turns, but with earlier starts and later breaths. The plan grows like a tree. It adds rings in quiet places. Drop points must look like they never change. A different crate goes to a different shelf, but the silhouette must be the same. The blanket must fold the same way. The strap must catch the same hole. The man who opens the door must yawn with the same timing. These tiny plays convince chance to choose someone else. We keep a second book only for delays. It is thinner than the ledger and more important. It explains why we were 2 minutes late on a night when the world was slippery and kind. It explains why we skipped a block because the street decided to meet the water in an enthusiastic way. The book does not judge. It records. Recording is how tomorrow becomes easier. The city is also a clock of smells. Coffee at the corner at 1:45, hot oil near the trolley barn at 1:50, wet stone by the courthouse at 2. A person who knows these smells could tell the type with eyes closed. A person who can tell the time with eyes closed can drive a truck without waking. A street. We enter a lane that pretend to be private. It is only shy. Our wheels tread lightly. The window on the second floor glows. The woman there waters plants that never object. She waters on the half hour. We pass on the quarter. Our timetable respects the plants and the woman and the window. Respect is a lubricant too. At a rail crossing, the gate goes down with ceremony. We wait. Waiting is its failure. Waiting is a tool. A truck that can wait looks like it belongs to the world and not to a story. We let the freight cars pass like pages turning. The last car clicks and the gate rises at a speed the city finds tasteful. Drop point 4 is the modest back room of a club that believes in good chairs. During the day, those chairs hold meetings that will be forgotten kindly. During the night, the same chairs keep watch over 5 crates and a ledger with 2 lines. We arrive between songs drifting from a radio 2 buildings away. The song is always a waltz. The waltz gives us 3 counts to lift and 3 counts to set down. Timetables are not only times, they are also distances. The city has stretches that take the same effort every night no matter how many cars roam them. We learn those stretches and use them like bridges. When people ask how we never run late, we answer that we cross the same bridges every night. We do not mention that some bridges are made of timing and not iron. We must also account for people who live outside timetables. There is a man who argues with himself on the corner near the pharmacy. He appears at odd minutes. When he is there, we give him the whole block as a gift. We turn away early and return later. Gifts to the odd save hours for the even. There is a cat that crosses the street near the school and stops to consider a stone. We treat the cat as if it were a carriage with a mare inside. The schedule would bear the weight of one cat. Schedules break under the weight of pride. A line on our route card reads simple. Stop under the lamp that flickers twice and then goes steady. That line is it about the lamp. It is about the timing of a patrol that picks up coffee at the diner and always stirs twice. Their second stir is our go. We watch their spoon without watching. The machine of the city has a heartbeat. It is heard best in stairwells and under bridges. It is a pulse made by electricity and habit. We aim to place our work between beats. There is more room between beats than on them. A drop point can retire when a building is sold or a neighbour grows friendly with questions. We give the place a party by cleaning it as if we loved it. Then we close the door and never use it again. Retirement is part of any machine that wants to run forever. New points open by audition. For a week we walk by at different hours. We count footsteps and measure echoes and learn which windows are night owls. We watch which policeman prefers which side of the street. We listen for the dog that barks at hats and the dog that only barks at rain. When the audition is over, the door either joins the show or keeps its day job. The machine also includes the post office. Night mail moves like a second river. It shapes which alleys are empty and which corners smell like ink. We let the mail decide for us which blocks to borrow. The mail is a timetable you can trust, because it trusts nothing. Our longest route ends at a cellar that once kept coal and now keeps promises. The stair is narrow. The wall wears the memory of many crates. At the bottom, a man writes 2 lines and a small square beside the time. The square means the night shaped itself correctly. The night likes to hear that. Timetables change with seasons. Summer adds light but also street noise that tries to have opinions. Winter gives darkness early and ice that wants to be in stories. Spring adds puddles where they are not invited. Autumn makes the air smell like paper and gives us better grip. We adjust the same way we always adjust. We start earlier, we pause longer, we carry blankets that remember how to help. We also keep a chart of days to avoid. Election days, parades, big games, paydays, first snow, last day of school, nights when the city pretend to be small. On those nights we move as little as possible, and only along lines that to be mistaken for someone else's plan. There is a myth that drop points talk to one another. They do not. We speak for them, with the ledger and with the strap that fits the same hole every time. A network can be made of silence if the silence is shared. We add redundancy the way a cautious father adds blankets to a bed. Extra straps, extra felt, an extra turn that brings us near a phone that eats nickels. An extra person who knows the spare key but never says so out loud. Timetables that bend are immune to breaks. A final thought on the city as a machine. Machines fail when someone hurries a part that was meant to glide. We glide. We let the belts pull us, and we let the gears ignore us. We look like a bolt that belongs. We look like a belt that has been there forever. We are there, and yet we are not there. That is the trick. If you are drifting, stay. If you are awake, follow one more small route with thee. From the clock at the streetcar barn, to the bakery, to the lamp that flickers twice and then learns manners, down the lane where the laundry never dries, across the small bridge that prefers hats, into the back room where chairs are brave, out again by the street that smells like lemons and documents. Turn left at the cat, turn right at the plant lady window, pause under the whistle, proceed under the laugh, finish in the garage that keeps the ledgers that matter. We close the book on tonight's timetable with a single line. Routes kept, delays none, city calm, a small square beside the Tibe. The square tells the machine that all its parts were respected. The machine purrs. We go to sleep.